I'm Janine. This is KUCI 88.9 FM in Irvine, and this is Get the Funk Out. Standing by to join me is Brennan Barnard. He is the College Admissions Program Advisor and part of Making Caring Common at the Harvard Graduate School of Education. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Not sure if you knew my show was called Get the Funk Out, but now you do.
I do. I love it.
I don't know very many people who are not in a funk right now. Yeah. And tell me about your role at Harvard.
So the Making Caring Common project, there are a number of different initiatives. And the overall goal is how do we raise young people who care about each other, themselves, and the common good. Yes. And my role within Making Caring Common is specifically around college admission and how do we send, it's part of the Turning the Tide initiative. So Turning the Tide in college admission, how do we send messages to young people about what is valued and about kind of being good citizens and how do we use the college admission process, which can be sometimes full of
daunting
and pressure, and how can we use that to send the messages about what really matters?
Yeah. I saw your article shared by Ariana Huffington.
Oh, right.
It was on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted to reach out to you, because one of the things that it seems that the college counselors are really tuning into, not that they haven't been already, but right now, is self-care.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about that a little?
Yeah, they always have. But I think especially right now, it's, that we've had over 350 mission deans have signed this statement. Schools all over the country, big, small, selective, non-selective, public, private, historically Black colleges and universities, community colleges, you name it. And basically what they're saying is, look, we get it. We get it. These are stressful times. And if ever there was a time to take care of yourself, it's now. And we're not expecting you to jump through hoops and perform and be these extraordinary kind of beings in this time, especially. Yeah.
You're really tuning into the fact that you know that they're stressed. You know that they're going through a lot of hardships personally, academically, whatever. I was so impressed with that.
Yeah, and it's all over the board, right? So it's students who are taking care of a younger sibling so their parents can go to work. It's students themselves who are frontline workers and are going to jobs where, it's pretty stressful. They're worried about contracting the virus on a daily basis.
Yes.
Food insecurity. Like really real life problems. And so, within that context, it's really important that they do take care of themselves and take care of each other.
Right.
It's been great to see the kind of rallying around this message from college admission officers.
When did it first start, Making Caring Common? When did this come about?
The Turn the Tide initiative part of it came about in 2016 when a number of college admission deans kind of came together and said, look, we are headed in the wrong direction in terms of what kind of the stress that students are under and how they're treating each other, and that the disconnection between what parents are saying they value and what kids think their parents value. And so this real kind of disconnect. And so the college admission deans kind of came together in 2016 and put out this initial report. And then we actually put out another report last March around kind of ethical character in college admission for students and for parents and for schools, for high schools. Interestingly enough, it was right at the same time.
I wonder why.
Yes, right. Actually, we had been working on that report for months before any of this surfaced.
And then the irony.
Yes, the irony. It was very fortuitous. And it was more important than ever. And so that second report, Turn the Tide 2, came out last spring. not the spring that just happened.
I found it so ridiculous, and I won't name names or anybody in particular, how a parent could say their kid rode on the crew team and they had never rode, or they were a tennis player and they had never picked up a racket. I mean, you're really setting your kid up to lie and be a con artist,
Right. Well, beyond just the dishonesty and the gaming the system and the privilege, it is the message that you're sending to your children about what matters and what it means to be an ethical human being. And
Yeah.
So I mean, that's that's the extreme case, what we saw in the Varsity Blues, but there's little ways that, and this is what our report kind of was getting at, that, how can we use college admissions and this kind of rite of passage for some, to make it a learning experience around ethical character and around commitment to others and these really important issues.
I feel like this is a time for kids to really learn resilience or experience resilience, because like for me, I was not a good student growing up. I really did very well by my senior year. And I understood struggle academically because I didn't really understand how to learn growing up. And a lot of it was my home life and not being motivated and understanding how to really buckle down. Yeah. And I felt like when kids can really dial into having a full life, a balance, that when they go off to college, they can take those habits with them and dial into how to be successful.
Yeah. I mean, it's that resilience piece is so important, and the self-awareness. I think kind of how do you take care of yourself, but also how do we as parents and educators, and how do students themselves ask the questions about why they're doing what they're doing, and just really be intentional, and to ask the question about kind of what's the end goal, right? Like, is it to get into the most selective school? Is it to what does success mean? And is it how I am as a human being and how I am in community, or is it getting ahead and winning at all costs? Right. And I think that's the really important message. And ironically, I mean, as it turns out, and this statement is, I think, is an example of that. That's the kind of student that colleges want to have on their campuses. They want to have those students who are taking care of themselves and taking care of their family and taking care of those in their community. They don't want the students who are, uber competitive and trying to, get ahead at all costs and ripping pages out of the textbook in the library so others can't learn, right? I mean,
here's a question for you, though. Typically, schools would look at, what are your scores? What are your GPAs? What have you taken? Now, are they going to switch things to really look at the whole person? Because never before would you say, oh, I've been taking care of my grandmother while my mother went back to work because somebody needed to be with her. How are they going to really discover who this new person is?
Right. I think it's we've talked a lot about it as kind of this laboratory moment of kind of for admission offices to be able to really step back and say, what are the ways that we're assessing students, and how can we how can we look at issues of character in the admission experience? Sure. And how can we ask questions in a different way, or get at information in a different way when we don't have testing and we don't have some of the usual metrics of college admission? And I mean, the truth is, in terms of grades, they have grades, right? They have how a student did in their freshman and sophomore year, and most of their junior year, and hopefully their senior year. And so, they have enough information to go on, and they're going to rely on recommendations, and they're going to rely on how a student is able to articulate their experience. But it opens the door, I think, to kind of what are better ways to get at a student's potential.
Right. I mean, because I have known students that were phenomenal in high school, took all the AP classes, high scores, everything. That's all they did. And they've gone to college and they combusted.
Right. They come unraveled, right?
They really did. It was too much pressure. They got to school and they didn't know how to deal with conflict. They didn't know how to deal with ambiguity. et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I feel like, as you said earlier, long term, what really matters is their mental health,
Right.
not what their GPA is when they graduate high school.
Right. Right. And that resiliency piece. And colleges want students who are going to graduate in 4 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the key metrics in kind of how they're looked at as a college,
Right.
What's their retention rate and what's their 4-year graduation rate. And also they care about the students they're educating. And so they want to know that the students who are coming to campus are going to be equipped to do that.
Yes.
Mental health is a serious issue on college campuses. I mean,
Yes.
a lot of, even before COVID, a lot of college and college counseling offices on college campuses were doubling their staff, and they're just seeing huge increases in anxiety and depression and suicide. And I mean, it's a crisis. It's an epidemic.
It is a crisis. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's really important. I think students learn now how to take care of themselves
Right.
before they're kind of thrust onto living independently.
And I think it's an opportunity for teachers to really dial into tuning into students that might not seem like they're doing well. There could be a different reason why they bombed their test. There might be some underlying issue.
Right. Well, and this, so this is the huge disparity in our country, right? How are teachers and counselors in high schools able to really stay tied into students, right? I mean, there's the national student counselor ratio in high schools is something like 450 to 1. So one counselor.
Whoa, Brennan, that's insane.
When it's recommended that it should be 1 to 250. So, and I mean, there's just these huge inequities when we look at our K-12 education. I mean, 14 million students in the country are in a school where there's a sworn police officer, but no access to a counselor or nurse or mental health professional, right? So when you look at that, how do we care for our young people when that's when we're showing that that's what we value? And I think we really need to get a handle on that.
Yes. How do you think people will get a handle on that? How do you think schools will begin to change the way they handle stress of students?
Well, I think they're going to see more and more. I mean, right now, schools are facing budget cuts and all that kind of thing, and I think they're going to see. I mean, a lot of counselors in public schools, they're not even able to do post-secondary counseling, like counseling kids for college and helping them apply to college, because they're dealing with food insecurity, and they're dealing with abuse issues, and they're dealing with kids who are really struggling. And I think we need to just as a society, as an education system, we need to put more resources there.
I agree.
Yeah, and not only care for kids, but also teach kids how to care for themselves and for each other.
Yeah. One of the things I always talk about in my show is teaching them how to be thoughtful to themselves, but also thoughtful to others. And that's something you talked about. It's a wonderful thing if they do care for that grandparent or their younger brother or sister. And because sometimes helping somebody else gets you out of your own mindset for a little while.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about helping with, not helping for, right? Like really working with the people you're serving, rather than just kind of this kind of doing it. One of the things, and we outline this in the statement, is this kind of colleges aren't expecting students to do these amazing volunteer projects and what we call the volunteer Olympics, right? This is not a competition to see who can volunteer the most or do the most grandiose thing.
Right.
Travel halfway across the world to volunteer. It could be helping in your community in really important ways, and whether it's helping a family member, but it could be making masks. It could be, who knows, contact tracing. It could be getting out the vote. I mean, who knows, ways that you're volunteering to make our society better, and not have it to be about you, like you said, like
Yes.
have it to be something outside yourself.
Because that's definitely a mood lift. When you go out and let's say I see an elderly neighbor on my street and I say, do you need help with something? And they might say, you know what, I don't go to the grocery store and I need help getting X, Y, and Z. Can you help me?
Right.
You know?
Right.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm here in New Hampshire. I live in New Hampshire, and last Christmas, my kids and I went out, and there was a huge snowstorm, and we just had some time, and they ended up shoveling out a elderly couple that lived down the road from us.
Nice.
Just because, we were out on a walk and that we saw them struggling, and they
Right.
helped. And for the rest of the day, my kids, it wasn't about the gifts and the kind of hubbub of Christmas for them. It was about, wow, we really made a difference in these people's day and brightened their day. And that kind of thing, that has such a lasting impact.
It's huge. Look at the impact you made on your kids.
Right. And so I think if we can create opportunities for students to engage in those, and we can send messages like this to say, look, it matters. But even at this time of kind of this pandemic, and if you're not able to do those things, it's all right. Right? It's all right. Take care of yourself.
Yes.
First, because it's kind of that airplane model, right? Put on your own oxygen mask first, right? I mean, so there's not this huge expectation that you're going to solve the world's problems, especially right now.
And sometimes I find that this works for me and other people. Sometimes doing nothing can get you the answers to something. So if I go outside and I sit under a tree, which I rarely do, and stare at the sky, a sense of calm will come over me, and I might find an answer with a rational mind to something that's been troubling me.
Yeah, I'm a huge believer in the power of mindfulness and having a meditation practice, or I do myself, but also just the power of mindfulness in schools.
Yes.
And how teaching students that ability to kind of sit with themselves and just kind of sit through a stressful time is really important.
Yeah.
It's actually a nationwide effort. There's a institute called the Mindfulness Directors Initiative, and a group that's trying to create positions in schools for a mindfulness director to run these programs, which is, programs like that are just so needed. So
they are. A lot of it is, I believe, the technology. They're on their phones a lot. There's nothing much to do. They're on Zoom. They're bored. They're over it.
Right.
And so they get really swept up into technology because that's the way they can connect with people. But it can be to a fault where they forget how to, go out for a walk, ride a bike, have a social distancing walk with a friend, something.
Well, and it's a slippery slope, right? It's great to have the connection, but again, not to talk about my own kids the whole time, but my daughter was supposed to go away to a sleepaway camp for part of the summer, and her biggest regret, she's gonna miss her friends and everything like that, but she said, I look forward to that time because it's 2 weeks that I'm not on my phone, right? And I'm forced to be away from it.
How honest.
Yeah, sometimes we really need that structure to kind of prevent us from being kind of just nonstop inundated with.
So maybe we have to devise that at home. Pretend you're away.
I'm steps ahead of you. Yeah, that's right.
It's hard. It's easier said than done because they do get pulled from their friends, and everybody has issues and they want to be the helpers and solving things. But boy, is it draining.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add, especially about that wonderful article you wrote that was shared on LinkedIn?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think it's really important that that students and their caregivers understand that this is they mean this, right? And like when colleges say, they're not requiring standardized testing, they're going test optional for this year or beyond. They mean it, right? They test optional means test optional, and they mean care for yourself. And so and I think it's just a chance to step back and be gentle with yourself, and to if you're appreciate what you have, if you do have things, and if you don't, to share those resources with others, and to reach out to people who are in need. And if you're fortunate enough to have access to counseling, to
Sure.
resources, to whatever,
Right.
and kind of pay it forward.
And because they shouldn't go it alone. Sometimes people can't
Definitely.
talk to their parents. They don't have that sense of connection. Maybe reach out to a coach, a mentor, a counselor, somebody.
Yeah, I often say, I mean, one concerned adult in a young person's life, I think, is all it takes.
Mhm.
And I really encourage students to identify who that adult is.
Yes.
Not every student immediately has an adult like that in their lives. And so to try to kind of identify whether it's a teacher, a coach, a pastor, a counselor, a parent, whoever it might be, but really identify that person and use them as a support.
One thing I want to add too is I'm hearing, because my daughters have been online too, I'm hearing people say, I'm not doing very well. The workload is insane. It's crazy. I'm just not doing as well as I'd normally do. I'm overwhelmed. There's so many factors. What would you say to the student who says, I'm really not excelling online?
Right. I missed the last part of you.
Oh, what would you say to the student who said, I'm really not excelling online?
Oh, yeah. That, find ways to be engaged, or create connection with friends. I mean, it's not for everyone.
Right.
I would say use it as a teachable moment as much as possible, and like you said earlier, kind of a lesson in resilience. And how are ways, if if online learning isn't working for you, how are ways you can make it work for you? What are ways you can reach out to your teacher, or reach out to friends to create a kind of
Study group.
study group.
My daughter did that. She found
Yeah.
somebody that is interested in working on a class, and they meet at a social distance. It's been the best thing.
Yeah, just go on a walk with somebody and be able to kind of connect around what you're learning in class, or whatever it might be.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Any last bit of advice for people that are in a funk right now?
Just get the funk out. Just get it out, and keep your eyes on what's ahead. And I think identifying again your why are you doing what you're doing,
Mm-hmm.
and find even the littlest pieces of hope that you can, and kind of stay with those.
You bet.
Tough time. Yeah.
If people want to find out more about you or connect with you, where can they find you?
Making Caring Common has a website that you can go on and subscribe to our email list. MCC.
You know what? I put it on my show blog. Don't worry about it.
Good.
I put a link. I'm just going to grab it. Well, anyway, it's on my show blog, which is funkoutshow.kuci.org. It'll be with this conversation, and there'll be links to it.
Great.
Okay.
Great. And I'm also on LinkedIn and a bunch of other places if they want. I wrote a book as well called The Truth About College Admission.
Oh, when did it come out?
It came out last fall. I co-authored it with the Rick Clark, who's the director of admission at Georgia Tech.
Fantastic.
A family guide to getting in and staying together. So all about kind of how to go through this and stay unified. And so you can find information about me there too.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Brennan, it's been great chatting with you.
Thanks for all you do.
Time. Absolutely.
All right. Take good care.
Thank you.